You want to say hello? What's going on, everybody? It is Scott here, back again with yet another video. So I've been working on this video for a pretty long time now. This is definitely not the first time I've sat down and created an intro sequence for this video, because I've changed the way that I've done this video multiple times because so far it just hasn't felt right. Basically, the last version of the video was way too wordy, and I think it focused way too much on the fact that it was like a back to school type of video. One, I don't want to bore you guys with all my talking, and two, it is a little bit past the usual back to school season. But here's what I tried to explain in the last version of the video, and it took me about 5 minutes to do so. I am a senior film and video production major in college, and whether it's for school projects, client projects, personal use like YouTube, I want to be able to make really good quality videos, and I don't want to take a ton of time doing it. Over the past few months, I've been building my gear portfolio to greater assist me in my ability to produce videos and to do so efficiently. Over the next few videos, I'm going to be going over a lot of the gear that improves my workflow, enhances my creativity, and is just generally helpful for me as a film student. This will be all the gear that actively helps me to get my work done well and to do it efficiently, and more importantly, this will be exactly how it helps me, because after all, it's really not about the gear, it's about how you use it. That's a secret that the big YouTube channels don't want you to know. They just want you to buy stuff with their affiliate links. We don't have affiliate links here, because if we did, I'd make like 3 cents off of it. Just so I don't bore you with a half-hour long video, we're gonna split this up into 3 different sections. The first section is going to be camera gear, so that's anything that is my camera or attaches to my camera that helps me capture good video and capture good audio. Now, what I'm going to say might be a little controversial, but I'm gonna let you in on a little bit of a secret. Buying a more expensive camera won't make you a better videographer. Don't tell anybody I said that. The truth is, I'm spending a very little time on the camera itself because I really think that the other things that I have make more of a difference for me when I'm making a video. But cameras are cool, and it's important to at least talk about them. So, let's talk about my camera. Here she is. Oh, and here I am. There we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, this little guy here, this is the Sony a6300. Now, I picked it up a couple of years ago when I was first kind of just starting out on my journey as a videographer. At this point, it still meets all my needs because it's really nice and portable. It doesn't look portable with all this stuff on it, but on its own is actually a quite small camera body. It records in full 4K. I tend to record in 1080 when I'm doing YouTube stuff just for the heck of it. But when I'm doing client projects and whatnot, the 4K quality is really good looking. In addition, it also does support a microphone input, which is really important for capturing good audio, and I didn't want to have to buy an external recorder and haul that around with me. If you're looking for something similar, the a6300 really isn't being sold anymore, so I would look at the a6400 if you're interested in something that can do more custom picture profiles and has better autofocus, or the 6100 if you still want to shoot 4K, but you don't care as much about the little nitty-gritty stuff like that and want to save a little bit of money. Both of those models are newer and improved a little bit on the design of the 6300. First things first, it does have a flip-up screen, which is something that I wish that I had in this, because vlogging is kind of a nightmare. I have to kind of guess the framing in a lot of cases. And they fixed an issue where if you're recording in either a warmer area or if you're recording in 4K for a good period of time, it can overheat fairly quickly. But honestly, anything with an interchangeable lens system, maybe a microphone input or something, will be fine for 90% of beginners out there if you happen to be a beginner. If you're not a beginner, go watch Peter McKinnon or something, I don't care. Whether it's Sony or Canon or Nikon or Panasonic or something, get one that you can switch out the lenses for, because that's what we're going to talk about next.
As you're composing your shot, choosing which lens and how you use the lens is going to be one of the most important factors. Now, lenses are expensive, and while it's really important to have a really good variety of them, you don't need the most expensive glass out there to get some really good footage. You just need to be able to cover your bases for the type of work that you do. Sully, stop it. And so it can be difficult to get a kit of lenses that can fully cover the entire spectrum of what you need with kind of versatility that you need. Now, this is going to depend on your level. If you're a little bit more of a beginner, starting off with a couple lenses is not a big deal, but as you progress... Hi, buddy. Now, to a lot of beginners out there, lenses don't seem like that big of a deal. And that couldn't be farther from the truth, because lenses really shape the look of the scene. And I'm not saying you have to invest in some really expensive lenses as a beginner. I'll show you my kit, which is a pretty cost-effective set of lenses that allows me to get a lot of versatility in my shots. Oh, hey. Sit. Stay. 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 Oh, go get it. Good boy. I'm gonna stay over here. The grass is wet. Okay. Stuff I do for you, little...
So the first lens in my kit, and the one that you'll see me shooting the most on, is actually the lens that comes with the camera. It's definitely not the highest quality glass in the world, and it's not a very fast lens. The minimum aperture is 3.5, but it does a really good job at a couple of things. Number one, it's really flexible. It can go all the way from a really solid 16 millimeters, which on the crop sensor like this, it's actually going to be a full frame equivalent 24, which is fantastic for any sort of vlogging or landscape or anything along those lines. Really nice and wide so that you can see a lot of what's going on. I don't have to worry so much about the framing. All the way to 50 millimeters, which is really excellent for any sort of close-up shots on people's faces, or things that happen to be just a little bit farther away but don't quite warrant a longer zoom. Being a native Sony lens, I haven't had any problems with the autofocus, and it doesn't really do the seeking thing back and forth very often, which makes it really nice for vlogging, so I don't have to worry about pulling focus when I'm on the fly. A ton of better lenses out there, but for beginners or people who are on a budget, I really can't recommend anything better because it just comes with the camera. Anytime I need a little bit of a tighter shot, or if I'm trying to go with something that's quite a bit farther away, I'll whip out the 55 to 210, also from Sony. Now this is actually a lens that you can often get in a kit with the 16-50. You just have to look out for it, but usually it's a lot cheaper to buy both lenses in the box with the camera instead of buying one of the lenses later. This is an excellent lens for any time that I need to get a little bit of extra zoom, and pairing up the 16-50 and the 55-210 together gets me all the way from a pretty wide angle 16 all the way to a super telephoto 210, which is 24 to like 300 if you factor in the crop factor. Now this next lens is a little bit of an interesting pick. It's a pretty unique one. So it's the Photocy 35mm f1.7 lens. So let's break that down a little bit. At 35mm, that means that it is on a full frame camera, about a 53mm, which makes it absolutely perfect for any sort of portrait shots. And that doesn't just mean it works well for like high school senior pictures or wedding photos and stuff like that. That means it's actually perfect for any time you want the human face to appear natural, or anything that you're shooting to appear the way that our eyes see it, because the human eye sees at a roughly 50mm equivalent. I found that this lens is not only super helpful for any stuff like that, it's also excellent in any sort of low light condition. Being an f1.7, that allows a lot of light to come in and makes it really nice when there's not so much light. And it also allows for a really nice looking blurry background effect, or bokeh. So that's really good to get shallow depth of field, which can really enhance a more cinematic look to any of the footage you're using. So I would absolutely recommend this to anybody, especially beginners who don't have the money to drop a bunch of cash on a really good prime lens. One downside, but also kind of an upside for a lot of people, is the fact that it's a fully manual lens. That means manual aperture and manual focus. The reason why it's a downside is because sometimes those things are nice to have. It's nice to be able to manually adjust your aperture up and down from the camera itself so you can know precisely what you're at. That is sort of just a universal downside, but what I kind of like about it is that it's a manual focus. And now, every now and then, I do have an issue where I'm slightly out of focus and I just kind of wish it would have been a autofocus lens. But it really pushes me as a videographer to get down the skill of being able to pull focus correctly instead of just relying on autofocus, because being able to choose your focus point is so important in video. If the camera decides your focus for you, you're not the filmmaker, the camera's the filmmaker. Those are the three lenses I use, and yes, it'd be great to have some more, but those are very expensive, and that's something that I'm still saving up for at this point. But these get me through my day-to-day stuff. They're definitely a very versatile set of lenses that allow me to do a variety of different types of shots, and I don't feel locked into a specific type. And I'd absolutely recommend these to anybody, especially those who are just starting out. Now, there's a couple things in my camera kit that really don't get to share the limelight with the camera itself and my lenses and stuff like that, but really deserve talking about because of how incredibly helpful they are. And the first thing from there is going to be my field monitor. So you saw it a few minutes ago. It's a big screen that sits on top of my camera, and the biggest thing that it helps me do is to make sure I have accurate focus, make sure my exposure is okay, make sure I'm able to get the framing of my shot properly, and a lot of that is very difficult to do on the built-in LCD screen on the camera. And that's because it's really small, it's really dim, and sometimes it's very difficult to see behind all the other stuff. I've got cables, I've got a handle, it's a mess back there behind the camera. And so having that monitor on top really lets me make a good shot out of what I'm shooting. For example, the computers behind me aren't on, and I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have my monitor. Whew. One of the neat things about this particular monitor, which I'll link below, I think it's the Feel World something. It's like an F6 or an F5 or something like that. I'll try to find it and link it down below. One of the coolest things about it is that it can take a Sony NPF style battery, which they come in a few different sizes. I have a couple of the biggest size, the 970s. With that too, I can run a DC output from the monitor to my camera using a dummy battery, and that powers my whole rig. With that battery, that monitor can last, I don't know, I've never had it die on me. So one battery to rule them all. It's bonkers, it's great. So you can definitely spend a lot of money on a really accurate monitor or one with a ton of awesome features. But this one really does the trick. It's got a lot of tools up its sleeve. I mentioned a couple of them, but it also has focus assist, it has zebras, it has false color, all tools that you can use to make sure you're getting a really good image. And it was only about 160 bucks. And in a lot of cases, if you're a beginner, there's really no point in spending 500 bucks on a monitor when that money could go towards a better lens or something. So I'll definitely recommend this one, and I'll link it down below. Now, next up is my gimbal. This is the Shotgun Weeble S. And first of all, I love this gimbal. Second of all, I have a love-hate relationship with gimbals. And I'll tell you why. So, number one, they're expensive. This is one of the cheaper options out there, and it was about 400 bucks. Cha-ching! The truth is that you don't need a gimbal to get steady footage. That's another thing that they don't want you to know. No, realistically, you can definitely get steadier footage with a gimbal. Sometimes, though, steady footage doesn't really make a film better. Sometimes having super steady footage gives kind of a fake look. There are definitely times that a perfectly steady shot adds to what you're shooting. I see a lot of like wedding videos shot on gimbals, and that's like the perfect time to use a gimbal. That's like, because you can't miss something, and you can't go back and reshoot. You know, you can't go back and, hey, can you kiss the bride again? My hand shook a little bit and I forgot my gimbal. Like, no, use a gimbal for that. But for all sorts of stuff, I see people just defaulting to their gimbal, and it doesn't really create a good look for a lot of different stuff. Try not to use a gimbal if you can avoid it. Practice safe sex, and also practice handheld. When I'm shooting handheld, protecting my camera is really important, so I will put a small rig cage around the camera, but I'll also use that to attach a bunch of different accessories to it. So the first thing, and probably the most important thing, is gonna be a top handle. And that's something that most professionals will tell you is one of the most important ways to properly stabilize a camera, to let gravity do the trick instead of, you know, doing all of the work stabilizing the camera yourself, because our muscles are relatively weak compared to the forces of gravity, and you're bound to have some of the jitter rather than that organic shake that you really want to see out of most scenes. So you can get the cage and you can get the top handle for under 100 bucks total. I don't even know what the pricing is, I don't remember. And you pair that up with the monitor and some good quality audio recording, and you've got yourself a little primitive cinema rig. So on the topic of audio, that's my next area of opportunity. Right now I'm talking on a $17 lavalier mic that I got on Amazon. Obviously it does a good job because you can hear me and I don't sound bad or anything, but I would like to upgrade my shotgun mic because I don't feel comfortable using that in any like professional setting, and that's something that I can't really talk about recommending because I don't recommend most of the stuff that I have. Stay tuned for better audio, I'll update on that. But in general, it's nice to have a lavalier option that can go on a lapel like this, and people can talk directly into it, and it doesn't pick up any of that outside noise. And it's good to have a shotgun mic, which I have attached to my camera, but it's not on, for any sort of like run and gun style where you can't tell someone, hey, put this on. Like, you're not always gonna have time to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time that we have a very, very serious conversation about lighting. You see, lighting is arguably the most important part of a scene. It's why it's called photography. Photo means light in probably Greek or something. And without light, your shot is not a shot. With light, you can do some other things. Yeah, this wasn't really meant to be like super dramatic, but like, I don't know, the lighting makes it really seem dramatic, and that's what lighting can do for you. Any sort of filmmaker, be it professional or amateur or anybody who knows what they're doing, will tell you that it's very, very important to have really intentionally lit scenes. And the one thing that I want you to really take away from this video, if nothing else, is that it's more important that you learn how to use your gear and less important of what gear you have and how expensive it is. And that's probably most important in terms of lighting. Being able to shape light is your job as a photographer or videographer or cinematographer or geographer or whatever you want to do. I don't care. It's not all bells and whistles and buying fancy stuff. Sometimes it's, you know, let's show you here. This is some pretty harsh light. Maybe I don't want to have it be this harsh. Plastic bag. Don't do this on a incandescent light because it'll catch on fire, but an LED light is fine. Look at that. That light's a little bit softer and my face looks just a little bit better, and you can see it a little bit more going on this side of my face here. And that's diffusion. Boom. Lesson number 1. Done. Soft light, harder light. And knowing the difference and using the difference when you're making videos, that's gonna make you better videos. A lot more than buying a new camera will, or buying a new gimbal will. Now, my lighting setup consists of a few different types of lights. I have 2 different photo lights. They can be used for whatever, but they're definitely more meant for photo. And they come with a little umbrella diffusers that can take your light and soften that light right up. Those were fairly inexpensive. I don't know if Best Buy still sells them. I can definitely try and link them down below. We'll see. They look like this, and they do get decently bright, and they're definitely pretty good for beginners. I have a little bit too much blue for my liking. I'm more of a orange guy myself when it comes to that, but they do come with orange filters that you can apply, which I probably should have done before I filmed this part of the video. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Now, I supplement that setup with this that I have over here. It's my main source of light right now, and that is a battery-operated LED light. And that's a very versatile light for me because 1, it's battery operated, like I said, so there's no cords, I don't have to worry about a wall plug, anything like that. It uses the same NPF style battery that my monitor uses, like I mentioned before, and I can just bring a couple of those and, I don't know, I can use them for everything that I need. And then, of course, being an LED light, it really doesn't produce any heat, which makes it really nice for hotter environments, or like interviews where my subject is going to be under this light, and making them sweat will make them look kind of funny on camera. So if I can avoid that, that's good, and that's kind of what LED lights are for. They're definitely becoming more popular than the traditional incandescent lights, and you're going to see a lot more of those on the market. This one was also a Best Buy purchase, but I've also seen some really good ones on Amazon. I will link them down below. You don't have to spend a ton of money, but get something that is decent build quality to whatever your budget allows for, and just make sure that you get at least 3 lights, because that allows you to completely fabricate your own 3-point lighting setup, which is kind of the standard for most of the different types of scenes that you'll see out there, especially like interviews and whatnot. Try to reduce your reliance on natural light because you have almost no control over that. And I don't know, what if you want to do something at night? Like I'm doing this at night right now. All right, well, that's the end of the camera gear portion of this series. The video has already gone way longer than I thought, so I'll keep this short. Thank you so much for watching. Keep an eye out for parts 2 and 3, which are going to be more into my workstation desk type of gear, and then into general tech that doesn't fit either of those two categories. So be sure to like the channel and subscribe, and then hit the notification bell when you want to see more content, and we'll see you in the next one.